Today is the 30th anniversary of my first sale as a painter. I was 20 years old, a junior at the College of Charleston, and it was to a collector from another city in South Carolina. And he handed me a $200 check. I still have a copy of it. I took the check and ran down King Street as fast as my legs would go to the local bakery where I bought a lemon pie, which is my favorite. And I held the pie close to my face, and it was warm and fresh and flaky. And I took it back to my studio and stripped completely naked and ate the pie with my bare hands, because that's the way I celebrate. I want to use that commemoration to say thank you to all of the people who buy paintings. Not just mine, I'm firmly established now, but those of younger painters, or students, or older painters who are just starting out or are trying to make it. It is so very important, because with that dough, they can continue to make more paintings. And it also signals to them that they've gotten through to someone. And I say this a lot, painting cannot change the world. However, it can alter one person's world. Creativity is what gives life meaning, period. There is no culture unless we show up for work. We are dreamers. And it's important to protect and nurture and support the dreamers amongst us. If you want a long career as a painter, you do two things. You show up every single day, and you become your own best friend. John Lennon said it best, "No one can harm you, feel your own pain." The other day I was in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I always end up going back to the same picture, called Summer Flowers by Henri Fantin-Latour from 1880. It's in the 19th century European wing. And that painting always recalibrates and recenters me. It puts me in a kind of transcendent amnesia. And it allows me to function in the world that I live in today. So much of the art I see in the galleries here in New York City is so-called protest art, full of bitterness and anger and cynicism. And seeing a painting like the one by Fantin-Latour reminds me that the ultimate protest is to make something beautiful with your hands to show another human being. The best way to say F you to pain and suffering and injustice is to make something beautiful. Beauty is the ultimate form of protest. I believe that the purpose of art, all art, is to create an excuse for us to stare at each other. Art brings us back into ourselves by first making us unrecognizable to ourselves. We are seeing through someone else's eyes. And if we can glimpse at someone else's heart, even for a moment, we can gain a better purchase on our own. And I've said this before, art is empathy, and it will save the world. There's nothing more intimate and elemental than making something with your hands to show another human being. It says, hey, I love you, and I made this for you to see. I've been obsessed with drawing hands for as far back as I can remember, and I have sketchbooks full of them in my studio. And my mom always said, people notice your hands. So in her memory, on my desk near my computer terminal, I keep a bottle of hand lotion and nail files and clippers. And I try to take good care of my hideously large Shrek hands. But although I'm 50 years old, I think I have the hands of a 48-year-old. Back in the old days, before I had people who built my stretchers and prepared my paints, I would carry hundreds of pounds of lumber through Manhattan streets to my studio to build my stretchers, and I did everything myself. I have scars, I've bashed my hands with hammers, I have splinters permanently embedded under my skin, and I have paint stains under my fingernails that will never come out. But I think that the physicality of my hands also matches that of my paintings. A painting is not created, a painting is made. And there's a difference between what we create versus what we make. We create our own way of seeing the world, which is based on personal and cultural experience. That takes a long, long time. However, we make our paintings. Oil paint is nothing more than crushed rock mixed with liquefied fat and smeared on a surface. We make a painting. If you were to burst into my studio at any given moment unannounced, you would not find me in a chair, thinking deep thoughts. You'd probably find me in my underwear eating pie, looking at a painting. Painting is an intellectual and cerebral endeavor, but it's also a hand job. I want to talk a little bit about underpainting, and it comes in two categories. There's imprimatura, and then there's traditional underpainting. And this is so an artist doesn't have to start on a blank white canvas. If you do that, then you have only the option of going darker. If you start on a middle valued tone canvas, then you have the option of going lighter or darker. The first, the imprimatura, is a solid color, usually half transparent, diluted with Gamsol in my case, and I will block in the entire canvas that color. And the color that I choose often dictates the mood of the painting that will follow. And for instance, certain colors will work well with the painting. If you underpaint with yellow ochre, for instance, then blue will pop on top of that. Green oxide underpainting will allow flesh pink to pop. The great American artist Charles Hawthorne would use what he called fog color, which was kind of a grayish taupe color on which everything would pop. And then there's the traditional underpainting, in which case the artist will use one color plus flake white in order to create the lights and the darks, so that they can have a grasp on the overall composition, on the treatment of light and dark, and on the value system in the painting. And if you get that part right, then everything else will go smoothly after that. And this is not only an aesthetic decision, but it was also an economic one, because in the past, colors were very expensive. So artists would get the entire value structure down with darks and lights first, and then come in with the colors. And here's a good example by Eugene Carrier. In this case, you can see the imprimatura left raw and visible, and then on top of that, he models with lights and darks the underpainting, the figures and the faces. And this is what's called the dead layer, because the color literally is dead. It's a flat, brownish, grayish, and white combination. Here's an example of one of my paintings where I lay in the imprimatura in two colors, one on the bottom, one on the top, and then you can see through time-lapse photography what comes after that. I love to eat. That's probably obvious. And although I've been fortunate to have dined in some very fine restaurants around the world, they pale in comparison to In-N-Out Burger. Whenever I'm in Vegas or Los Angeles, I go straight from the airport by taxi to In-N-Out Burger. And what I love, besides the double cheeseburgers and vanilla shakes, is the menu. Clear, concise, they do one thing and they do it extremely well. This is the kind of painter I want to be. And I always think about that when I'm standing in line looking at the menu. I want to do one thing over and over and over again for a long time and try to get good at it. Art students, especially graduate school students, are pressured into believing that they have to avoid labels and work across genres. That's art school bullshit. Art is the magnification of limitations. A label is your best friend. Label yourself, and the more specific and the more quickly you do it, the better. I am a Southern landscape painter who lives and works in New York City. That's my superpower under the sun. The higher the walls, the more fiercely one has to fight within those walls to reinvent themselves. Having a limited perspective and doing the same thing over and over and over again allows you to get really good at stuff. And that's jet fuel for creativity. Here's a menu I saw in Rome recently, and it's mind-boggling. Whenever I meet an artist and they tell me that they paint and sculpt and do some printmaking and photography, and they also do bonsai trees, it tells me a little bit about them. It tells me they probably suck at all of those things. However, when I meet someone who says they're a teacher and painter, or urologist and sculptor, or fireman and poet, then I'm interested, because I know that below the surface of those labels is some sort of conflict. And art is always born of conflict. Things never turn out the way we plan, and I am so thankful for that fact. So if someone tells me they're an artist, I go, ooh, But if you tell me you paint North American birds with red plumage in egg tempera on wooden panels, then you've got my attention. Be specific, make a label, and make it quick. I want to crawl into a deep hole and never come out.